Welcome back to Backroom Convos. I'm your host, Lesego M, Daddy Waddy Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Listen, if you are a fan of pod, stay tuned because you might like what we cooking. Before we get on with the business of the day, I'd like to send a shout out to Tyla, the song which is the song of the day. Song of the day being Water by Tyla. A backstory or fun fact is that it premiered first on the US Afrobeats charts. So Tyla is a South African born and raised artist and currently is sitting at 15 million listeners on Spotify. I just thought I should get that off the way. So getting on with the business of the day, I just want us to talk about the relationship that you have with selves. I know that I've committed myself to releasing an episode a day till we reach the 100th episode. And yesterday was one of those days that I had a bit of, a lot of things that are going on, load shedding. But, like I say each and every time when I'm on the podcast, that every excuse that you tell yourself is valid, and that was not an excuse. I didn't pitch. I don't beat myself too much over it, but I'm trying to do better each and every time. And thank you to everybody again that's listening to the podcast. And for those of you who don't know, that a day before yesterday, I'm not quite sure that we premiered on the Billboard US charts. I don't know if it's because we had the guest feature from Gamumata, who is an AU pair. Is it an AU pair in the United States, and she's doing very wonderful for herself. I don't know if it was because of that, or is it because we were consistent with the work that we were putting in before yesterday. I'm not sure if it's that or whatever the case may be, but I really appreciate, and sometimes, I'm a big believer in, delayed gratification, and sometimes seeing all these instant gratification that I already put out like 3 episodes or 4 episodes in this week alone. That's a plus for me. And seeing that, we went from South African charts to the US charts, and it just goes to show that, there's a lot we can really offer in the market of podcasting. And, it's very important that, I also shared that with you because I already see the benefits, although it may not be in a monetary sense or in that monetary sense, but I thought it was very important for me to show gratitude to you guys who listen to the podcast, the community, and we're in the road of 100 episodes, and we are committed to releasing an episode each and every day. And I, for one, have seen some of the benefits of releasing episodes each and every day, and I'm in a space where I'm also discovering. I think I did mention in the last 2 episodes that I made a move from Johannesburg to Van der Bay, and which is a huge transition, of lifestyle and everything and above. I think that was also important to highlight, and I think it also took a bit of a mindset shift, and there was a lot of things that, I think a change of scenery did me a bit of good, you know what I mean? I think it was very important for the move, for new ideas, for new people, to meet new people, to have new conversations, and, outside of the podcast, I think it was very important for the growth of the podcast in general, because now this, new ideas that we are being brainstormed as to how we are bringing you guys an even better show, and taking, I think I've been beating myself up as far as how do I bring you my best self to the podcast, because I think, sometimes it's one thing to see a platform grow because of the people that listen to it and not because of the person that's pushing it. I don't know if that makes any sense, because I see that podcast has been growing. But the question that I have for myself, or the question that I pose to myself on a daily basis, is that am I growing enough each and every day? Am I putting in the work that ensures my place, that I'm growing with the podcast and I'm not left behind. You know what I mean? And my job on a daily is to always better myself for the better of the podcast and the growth of the podcast, because I think at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense to say the podcast is growing but the person behind it, the host of the platform itself, isn't growing. The point of having these conversations that we have with like our beautiful and brilliant guests is to learn and grow and expand our knowledge in different facets or different faculties as we grow. Like, it's to explore those different faculties and get to learn more about it. I might not know everything, but with the guests that we bring onto the podcast, and we hope to achieve that, to close the gap, to bring people together through business, through science, through politics even. We've had wonderful guests, and I'm so grateful that you guys, the audience is growing, the platform, the community. I'm so grateful to everybody that's listening. And I think let's talk about commitment. Commitment is very important, and it's been hard for me to stick to the commitment. And the reason I say it's been hard, because testing times, I've never did an episode a day. Never did it. I've never done an episode a day. So for me, that is challenging because it's something new. I've never done it before. So doing this to me is a challenge to myself, because sometimes I think when I do that, I realize that, my mind is saying something, my body is saying something, is saying something else, to say, I might be convinced that, you can do it, Lesego, you can do it, but at the same time, if I'm not putting in the work, skillfully, if you guys know what that means, skillfully, like whatever that I'm telling myself, I really want to say something, because on the subject of being committed to yourself and giving it your all, I wanted to bring in an interesting saying that someone I was listening to was saying to me. So this person, I was like, not to me directly, it was indirect via TikTok or Instagram, I'm not really sure, one of those platforms. And the person was like, if you tell your friend that let's go to the gym for 10 days, and he pitches to the gym and you don't pitch up for those 10 days, do you think the friend will believe you the next time you tell them let's go to the gym for the 10 days? Of course they won't, because you've already let them down on the first time, so it'll be hard for you or for them to believe you that you will commit yourself to whatever that you agreed upon. I think that also speaks to like the commitment that you have to yourself, to say whenever you tell yourself that this is an episode that I want to release each and every day, this is what I want to bring, the video that I want to bring to the market every day, it's your responsibility, it's my responsibility to say, okay, I'm that friend. If I'm pitching today, I'm pitching with that friend. We are doing that together, mind, body, and soul. If you tell yourself that, and you second that with action each and every day, I think it strengthens the chemistry or the bond that you have with yourself. Because I think the worst thing to have, the worst relationship to have, is to be connected to the world and being disconnected to yourself. And I think a lot of people in this world that get lost because they know everything in the world but themselves. Like, you get to talk to people who are experiencing a lot of things, but they don't really know who they are or what they want. But they know who Beyonce is, what Beyonce is getting, or like the house or the A, B, and C, who Beyonce is in public and off the public eye. They could tell you that, but they can never tell you who they are personally, what their ambitions are, what they aspire, the relationship they want. And like, I was writing a quote that said, the things that you value in your life, they're hidden behind everything you prioritize on a daily basis. I'll repeat that. everything that you value in your life, it's hidden behind everything you prioritize on a daily basis. If my priority as a podcast, or my values are with the podcast, I want to bring value to the podcast, everything that I do in my life will reflect that, to say he's planning content, he's doing this, he's researching, it goes to show that, I know what my values are, and all those things are hidden in these things, little things that I prioritize on a daily basis. And I think a part of the book that I was reading, which is Atomic Habits, it speaks about the 1% daily growth, that you always have to grow on a daily basis. It doesn't have to be much, just that 1%. It's all you need to grow on a daily basis. You need to be consistent as to where do you improve in this area of your life. And it's very important that you build that bond and trust with yourself, to say, I'm going to show up. The things that I tell myself, I'm going to be there for myself, And I think some of these things, people just say them, but I'm not quite sure if people really understand the meaning behind the things that they say. And I am for sure like a true believer in affirmations, and I think I am a true believer in that. But sometimes I look at that and I'm like, do these people with all these quotes understand the meaning behind? Are they putting the word behind? I always ask myself all those things, and I think, being a part of the podcast and seeing the growth, sometimes I don't. Sometimes, the numbers are down. Sometimes nobody's listening, and I'm releasing, episodes with guests that are like giving the most valuable information that can change someone else's life. You know what I mean? And I'm like, why is it that this episode is not doing good? And, there was so much value that this episode has, and I'm like, well, when the time comes, or when it's time for people to know, the efforts or the seeds that I'm putting in the ground will reflect in the next 10, 15, or whatever years that may be. The question that I had to ask myself is that, am I in for short term or for long haul? You know what I mean? I had to ask myself that question. So some of these things that tend to affect or the growth of a whole lot of the people that are in the broadcasting or the podcasting space, or even in business in general, don't ask themselves to say, like, am I committing myself for the short or long term? Just be honest. So the bond that you have to build with yourself, the chemistry that you have to build with yourself is starting by just asking those simple questions, by saying, like, am I really in the space to do this? Am I in this for the long haul or the short term? Or, and I think also the exercise of delayed gratification is important in anything that you are building in the long term. I don't care who you are or where you're from, but you need to understand. And I think someone was talking about this, and I think the person was Jordan Peterson. He was speaking on delayed gratification and how this generation is being fed the drug, which is like social media, the likes. Everything is just instant. You just post and you get 10,000 likes, and it just goes to pour on certain areas of your life, and you tend to live on the short term. The short term dopamine tends to feed you more. You know what I mean? And I think we as humans are creatures of habits, and when we build personality, we build things around short-term gratification. It's what leads to this is what I believe with it. Sometimes I think depression is caused by the expectation that comes with, instant gratification, where you don't get that instant hit, the dopamine hit instantly. You tend to get into that depressive state of mind instead of like just thinking outside long term. And I think sometimes it even weighs on me to say I always try not to indulge in the thoughts that feed or like lead me to believe in too much of like the delayed gratification. I meant to say, instant gratification. I'm so sorry about that. I meant to say instant gratification. So I want us to talk more about this when we come back from the break. I'm your host, Lesego M, Daddy Wadi Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get to call me Daddy like Cairo. Let's meet after the break. Cheers. Welcome back to Backroom Convos. I'm your host, Lesego M, Daddy Wadi Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Listen, the song of the day is Water by Tyla, sitting on 15 million on Spotify. Tyla is a South African born and raised artist, and currently is on tour, going all over the world, done stuff with, the Summer Walker song. Even I saw the feature with Summer Walker is also on the way. I don't know if it dropped, but I saw that someone was showing her love. Chris Brown showed her love. A lot of people, Rema, also showed Tyla love. And I think, Amapiano as a whole, I don't know why it's even categorized as Afrobeats as opposed to Amapiano, but that's a subject for another day. But, shout out to her doing great things in life, and she's only 21 years old. Can we imagine? Love her music, love her spirit, and I know there's been a huge thing going on Twitter, about the color thing, and South Africa came for that other lady. I remember that. You remember that? And there was a whole saga about what colored is, what colored means in the United States, and, South Africans came for her, and, I just thought that I should bring that up, but to get that off the way, man, I had to congratulate Tyla all the time, and that's why, in my opinion, she deserves the song of the day. She's doing amazing things, representing most especially South Africa, and I think there's a huge part of us being petty when it comes to like the as I feel, let me just say, as South Africans, we are petty. And I can refer to the Tyla Shandis, and I can refer to Amapiano. Like when the who's that guy, Sway Lee, when Sway Lee preached, and Sway Lee preached, he's like, I'm doing Amapiano, Nigerian genre, we're dropping the song. South African came off the woodwork for Sway Lee, and certain things were being said, of which I can't really mention on the podcast. But you guys had a lot to say for Sway Lee, and Burna Boy didn't get to fill up F&B Stadium, and it's all because of what he had to say about F&B. There's just a lot of things in how we as South African have each other's back in that end, which is very beautiful to see. It's very beautiful to see, and I just wish that amount of love can just pour on into other things or other facets of things that are happening in our country. If we can get that support and love, you know what I mean. We're in the road of 100 episode, releasing an episode each and every day. I'm grateful for the people that listen to the podcast for the past 4 or 5. I know some of the episodes are very trash, I know that some of those episodes, we do have like episodes where I'm just like all over the place, but I think now I'm just getting a hold of everything, just enjoying the space of doing solo episodes. And I think what I've realized with doing solo episodes as well is that it also improves how my mind works in the show. When I have guests, normally I used to prepare questions, a lot of questions, so I can ask them. And those questions, they come out, the way I read out those questions, you can tell that this person is actually reading those questions, and it doesn't create a free-flowing conversation between the guest and I, and I think having to do more of these solo episodes, it kind of does, get them out, like you reinforcing the skill, was tempele the skill. So like now with the Gambo episode that we had on Monday, I've realized that I no longer need to refer back to the questions that I have for the guest or boom boom boom. I don't need to do that, because everything I just do off of the top of my head. I just read everything from, like, whenever we're doing research, I'm just reading stuff off of that, and after that it's just shooting everything off of the top of my head, you know what I mean? And it's really interesting. And I think one thing that I realized now is that, I think for anyone who's about to enter the space of podcasting, what I've realized, which is, this is a tip or an advice, try to find things that you're interested in. And it's easier for people who understand the niche to say, like, this is my niche and I'm shooting for it, or whatever the case may be, to say, this is my niche, I'm going to stick to it. If I'm talking politics, if politics is your thing, stick to it and ask questions, and because you find that to be interesting to you. For me, it was a bit different, because now I'm talking everything entertainment. I'm learning people, interviewing people from different walks of life with very interesting perspectives, which might be relatable here and there, you know what I mean? So it's kind of hard to keep up, to be like, oh, I find this interesting, or like, and to have a biased story to say, like, we're gonna talk about this part of your life, I think for me that doesn't work, because some of these things are interconnected when it comes to life in general. A part of who you are is because of some of the decisions that we made for you, or that you made 10 years ago in whatever field, or or someone said no to you in football, but you became so driven that you wanted to prove everybody wrong in the next thing that you were doing, your next invention, or whatever that may be, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I just want to have an open-ended question where I get to ask what I want, and everything that revolves around the person, or what I even find interesting, and I think that just broadens, how I ask questions, to say, like, oh, I want to know about that. That's interesting. I think what Stuart was saying, Stephen, I beg your pardon. Stephen was saying, Stephen, the podcaster host of the Diary of the CEO, he was saying, it's very important that you bring in guests that bring value to the podcast. Any guests that you bring in, they have to bring value to the podcast. If you're just bringing anyone to the show, because I think this is the reason, without going all over the place, he was saying it's very important to bring people that bring value into the podcast. And by so doing, and because that stems from the relationship that you have with your listeners, and if your listeners that come in, week out, they understand, this person is bringing these people to the podcast, they've entrusted you with the responsibility of bringing people that will bring value into their lives. It's no longer a conversation, a back and forth, or whatever you may call it, between you and the guest, but it's about the third person, what the information does for the third person. And I've always tried to approach podcasting from the standpoint of providing value to the market, or to the people that listen to our podcast. So again, I'm very grateful, and I hope that I serve that purpose in every guest that I bring into the show, and I am improving myself on our way to 100 episode. And I just thought I should mention that, since we are in that spirit. And going back to the wins, won a lot this week, great week for the podcast. I think you guys should let me know, how I'm doing as far as that podcasting, as far as if I've improved in the past couple of episodes. Saying the 4 episodes that I did, including this one, of course, tell me what I did that was wrong, where you feel that I should improve, and shout out to the people that are listening to us from the States, man. Really appreciate you for everything, or for committing yourself to listening to the podcast, even when you hear like Lesego is still fumbling his way into greatness. And I appreciate you for that. And to bigger and greater episodes, to bigger and bigger guests, and I'd like for you guys, for those of you for sure who haven't followed subscribed or rated the show after this episode, please go on to your podcast DSP to just give us a rate, give us a follow, and also it's in benefit of you to do that because you always get a notification each and every time we drop a new episode. And I think one thing we haven't spoken about, or I haven't spoken about, it's the time that we release all these episodes. You know what I mean? We haven't spoken about the time that we release these episodes. It's because I'm still committing myself to the idea of let's release an episode a day, and hopefully in the near future I'll be in a space where I'm like, okay, so now we are consistent, or this is a part of our daily routine. Now it's in my system. I can start introducing time frames. Say, at 3 o'clock we'll be releasing this episode, But currently I can't do that because I feel that it becomes too much of it becomes too much work for me to do, because already I have pressure to release an episode, and there's like time, I think it's too much. But I'm taking it a day at a time, trying to build with you along my side, and thank you guys for being in support of the podcast. I'm your host, Lesego M, Daddy Waddy Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Caro. Let's mute on another. Oh, before we close it, I would like to give out, since we do have the book of the day, I think Jada Pinkett Smith deserves to hold that space that she has, because the last episode, the book of the day was read by Jada Pinkett Smith, which is her memoir. I haven't read it, so I can't say much about it. So to people who have, please let us know what you think of it, and hopefully I'll get a chance to read it, to get the book, so I can get over it. And for that, of course, and I think that might have been the reasons we charted on the US chart. So we'll give it a try again as a strategic move, to see if us saying Jada or mentioning Jada in our title did more good for us, or it's a strategic move, but let's just give it to her, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's a wrap of this week, of this week, because I think after this we are going to meet on the Monday episode. So not doing episodes on the weekend, so we'll be definitely meeting on a Monday with fresh thoughts, fresh ideas, new guests, hopefully, new achievements, I appreciate you so much, guys. I appreciate you committing to us, listening to us, and bringing value to the podcast, man. A round of applause for you. Let's meet next week, Monday, with another amazing episode. Song of the day is by Water, Tyla. Book of the day, Worthy by Jada Pinkett Smith. It's a memoir. Enjoy that. I'm your host, Lesego M, Daddy Waddy Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Let's meet next week, Monday, with another exciting episode. Cheers.